Hello and welcome to another episode of Garden to Table with Rose, and I am Rose. So today I am back for day 8 of the 10-day autumn soup challenge. So we're winding it down, day 8. Now yesterday, day 7, I made a classic minestrone soup, which I'm not a big fan of minestrone, so it wasn't one of my favorites, but it was tasty. So you can go back and look at that video if you would like, as well as soups 1 through 6. So all of those are here on the channel. And if you haven't already, click the thumbs up, like this video, subscribe to the channel, click that yellow box on your screen, and you'll get alerts of future videos. So we're winding it down. We're on day 8. Day 8 is black bean soup. Now, again, you've heard me say this many times. I am not a big fan of beans, so I am not excited about this one. Yeah, bean soups. But it is part of the 10 recipes challenge, so I'm gonna do it. So the nice thing about this recipe is you can do the whole thing in your Vitamix. Now, for those of you who know about the Vitamix, then you know that you can make a piping hot soup from raw ingredients in about 7-8 minutes in the Vitamix. That is how much heat that's generated from the rotations of the blade, so it can get things extremely hot. So that's kind of nice. You can actually make a soup in your blender, a hot soup. You don't even need the stove. So there are also directions here. If you want to do it in a pot, you could obviously do it in a pot, puree it at the end, because this is obviously a pureed soup. Just hold back some of the black beans to pulse in at the end to give it a little bit of texture if you want a little bit of texture. I'm going to do the whole thing in my Vitamix just because that's the first suggestion here. So for this soup, and it's again supposed to make 4, but I've been finding that these soups make 6 servings for me, serving sizes that I would eat. So keep that in mind. As you know, I like using my Better Than bouillon in all of my soups, and I have actually gone through this entire jar. Now I don't know how many gallons this jar made, but each teaspoon is supposed to make 1 cup of broth. And I've actually gone through the whole jar on this soup challenge. I had to add a little bit of the chicken Better Than bouillon because I don't have any more of the vegetable. I rarely buy this one. I actually just bought this for the challenge. I usually buy just chicken and the beef. So you're gonna need 4 cups of stock or broth or bouillon, or however you want to do it. 2 cups of canned black beans divided. Now this 2-cup thing that they got going, I just used 1 can. To me that was more than enough because I'm not a big fan of beans anyway. 1 can is 15.25 ounces, which is a little less than 2 cups, which would be 16 ounces. And I would recommend that you drain and rinse these beans. I did. I mean, you could use it with all the thick gelatinous liquid if you like, if you know that's your thing, but I prefer to rinse them. So I rinse these, so I use 1 can of those, which, you know, to substitute for their 2 cups, and then they want you to use 2 cups of garbanzo beans or chickpeas from the can. And again, I did the same thing. I dumped these out and rinsed them. It's just my store brand. So I have them here in this bowl. The black ones are on the bottom and chickpeas they're on top. And then I saved about half of them back because they want you to do that, I assume, so you can pulse in at the end and give it a little bit of texture if you want texture. If you don't want texture, put it all in at once. All right, so you're going to need 1/4 of an onion peeled, and I have a little less than 1/4 because I like to use less. You're going to need 1 clove of garlic, and I have probably 2 cloves worth here. You're going to need 1/2 lime juice. I get my lime cut here that I'll just squeeze in. You're going to need 1 jalapeno seeded and diced. Unless you don't like anything spicy, then leave that out. I have a little bit of harissa paste, which is like a pepper paste. It's an ethnic paste. I can tell you which country it comes from, but I had some leftover from another recipe, so I'm just going to use that in place of the jalapeno pepper. Like I said, if you don't want it spicy, you could leave that out completely. Then 2 teaspoons of cumin. Cumin is very common in like Latino cooking, and this is to me kind of a Mexican dish. It's a bean soup. So I always buy my cumin and other spices that I use a lot in bulk. So I have a huge container of that here. You're gonna need salt and pepper as usual to taste. And then if you want, you can saute the onion and the red bell pepper in a little bit of olive oil before you put it in the blender, or you could just do the whole thing in a pot and, like I said, use an immersion blender. So it's up to you. I'm doing all of mine in the blender. And then you're also going to need a half of red bell pepper, which I have here. And then for the garnish, you can use diced onion, diced red pepper, or green apple, I guess. I am choosing to use chives, chopped chives, because I had some chives that needed to be used in my garden. And I'm going to use those. Now, chives and green onions, although they look alike, they're not the same thing. I always thought when I was younger that chives were like baby green onions, like immature green onions. But they're really not. They're a whole nother seed. And they are more delicate, though. They usually are smaller in size than a green onion, more delicate. And the green part of the chives is a very deep, dark green. It's not, green onion, you might have some vibrant green, at the stems, but this is like a deep, deep dark green, like other leafy herbs, like a thyme or oregano or something like that. So they are a bit different. So that's what I'm going to use for my garnish. I'm just going to use that because, like I said, I'm not a big fan of beans, so I'm just going to try a little bit of this and not too much. So basically we're going to, let's see, put the stock, and I've reconstituted my Better Than bouillon here. Basically, we're just kind of mixing everything in this bowl, in this blender bowl. Beans, got my garlic and onion. And then, what else? Do they want me to put the red pepper in there too? Okay. Add the vegetable stock, half the black beans, the chickpeas, onion, garlic, lime juice, jalapeno, and seasonings. So, the red pepper, they want you to save it towards the end and pulse it in with the black beans. Now, let me squeeze my lime in here. What I think I will do is put half in here. Oh, also, I got, this just came from my garden and I need to use them up. These are tomatillos, so I was going to use that as a garnish. I've diced one up small. Tomatilla, it's hard to describe the taste. It actually is shaped like a small cocktail tomato, but it tastes, to me, the texture is firmer. The texture is more like the texture of squash or zucchini, the inside, when it's ripe. And then the taste is like cilantro, which is bizarre. It's a round fruit, but to me, it tastes a lot like cilantro. So, tomatillos are typically used in Mexican food, and I can understand why, because they taste like cilantro. So, just an FYI. So I'm just going to use that as a garnish because I have them and they're ripe. So I'm putting, this paste has a little bit of a kick to it. It's probably as hot as a jalapeno, I would guess. So I'm just going to put what's left here, which seemed like it was maybe 2 teaspoons, something like that. So I'm going to put that in there. All right. And some cumin. Now the salt and pepper, I don't think I need pepper. The salt I am going to leave to the end. I'm going to taste it and see if it needs salt. 2 teaspoons of cumin. I like cumin. It's good stuff. So I might have put a little bit extra. All right, and that's pretty much it. So they want you to blend this on high for 7 to 8 minutes, or until it's piping hot, basically. And that does take about 7 or 8 minutes. I've made several soups. So, and then after it's piping hot, you're going to turn it off, open the lid, put in the rest of your bell pepper and the rest of your black beans. Pulse it just so that you know, it's still chunky, not pureed, to give it some texture if you want texture. And then taste it and see if you want to add salt and pepper. And that's pretty much it for this soup. This is another easy peasy one. This one's even less than 30 minutes. This one is, well, there's no cooking, but it's just 6 to 7 minutes in this Vitamix and you're good to go. So I'm going to obviously mute the sound when I turn this on because this blender is very loud. But okay, now I'm finding out that apparently there's a max, and that's 6 minutes and 30 seconds. That's the max you can set the timer. I've never set it that high. Usually I've just made so far just smoothies with the timer, but okay. So here we go. I will be back after this is all blended up and piping hot, and we'll add our final ingredients, plate it up and taste it. This is a super quick one. All right, 1 minute. All right, I am back, and the blender went for 6 minutes and 30 seconds, and it has now cut itself off. And if I open that, you can see there's steam coming off of there. So it's definitely piping hot. It's definitely piping hot. All right, so that's 6 minutes and 30 seconds in the Vitamix of room temperature items. So now I'm going to put in the final red pepper and black beans that I had, and I'm going to post that really quickly. And then I'm going to taste it and see if it needs salt and pepper. And that's pretty much it. All right, that is it for that one. That made it a little bit thicker. That definitely made it a little bit thicker. All right, let me get my bowl. Let's see what we got going on here. And I'm just gonna take a little bit. So, as I said, I am just going to do a little bit of chive and a little bit of this tomatillo right in the middle. And that's it for me. And keep this simple. Because I didn't actually even taste it for salt and pepper. We'll see. Okay. It doesn't need salt. I don't think it needs pepper either because I put that harissa paste in it. It's like velvety and creamy. I'll give it that. It tastes very much like a Mexican dish. It reminds me a lot of refried beans. Just a little bit fluffier, lighter, soupier. So yeah, it tastes like exactly like I thought it would taste. Like a bean soup, pureed bean soup. So if you like pureed bean soup, then you're good to go here with this one. The color is, it's actually like the color of refried beans. It's like a mocha-ish, brownish kind of color. Pinkish, brownish. So yeah, it kind of looks like refried beans. It tastes like refried beans. Not my favorite. I am not that into beans. If you are into beans and you love beans, you love bean soup, you love refried beans, then you'll think this is fantastic because it tastes like I would imagine bean soup would taste. Now, if you want more depth of flavor, of course, you can saute all of those ingredients and cook them on the stove top and then just puree it after or use an immersion blender. That's it for the bean soup. I would definitely never make the bean soup again. And that's just because I do not like bean soup. And it's, so it's not appealing to me. But like I said, if you're somebody who loves bean soup, then that'll work. So this was the shortest recipe in terms of cooking time on the whole list, I believe. So this was like, 15 minutes basically. Throw all the ingredients in the blender, let it go for 6 minutes and 30 seconds. 15 minutes, that's even if you had to chop, some of the veggies yourself. So I would say it is definitely super quick. And like I said, if you like beans, you won't regret it. Now, I am down to the last 2 recipes. I'm so excited because I'm so tired of eating soup. So, tomorrow is recipe 9, and the recipe is for vegan chicken noodle soup, and they use tofu in this recipe. I will be using real chicken pieces, boneless, skinless chicken breast that I sauteed up at the beginning of this. I still have a batch of that left. So that's what I'll be adding in place of the tofu. This one I'm kind of looking forward to it. I do like a good chicken noodle soup, and this one looks healthy. It looks wonderful. And then there's one more recipe after this, and that recipe is going to be carrot ginger soup, which I'm going to have to do some substitutions for that one because I've gone through pretty much that whole bag of, or 3-pound bag of carrots that I bought. I have never used 3 pounds of carrots in 1 week. So, that's amazing, the amount of fresh produce that I've used in these soups. So it's definitely up my vegetable intake. But for the last recipe, I said to myself I would not buy any additional ingredients. So this last recipe, I'm going to improvise and probably do some substitutions, but we'll get to that later. In the meantime, thank you for joining me for another episode of Garden to Table with Rose. Take care.